This is a Power 98.7 podcast. Now we're talking. Subscribe to Power 98.7 podcasts in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There's more on power987.co.za.
Power Solutions is proudly brought to you by DSO Consulting. DSO Consulting. Truth, trust, results.
Linka Mohapi joins me in studio today. He is the head of IT and DSO Consulting. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening.
Now, I've been told that you're a bit of a lecturer. You come into studio and you give us a masterclass, and today you're going to be teaching us about a new form of science, data science. What on earth is that, brother?
Well, it is essentially, how do I put it? Data science basically is it combines a number of disciplines to start from, to begin at a point where you start with a certain level of data, and you're going to analyze that data, take the output from that analysis. You want to interpret that, and that will give you actionable knowledge.
And some people have said that perhaps information is the most universal currency that we have these days. It is the one that has the capacity to vault people from one part of the ecosystem to another. How important is information in the age that we live in?
Extremely, extremely. I think we're coming back a little bit from a bit of an information craze where there was a sort of arms race to gather as much information about everything as could possibly be had. And I think one of the benefits of the time that the era that we're in now is that we are realizing that not all information is valuable. It's not worth it to have every single piece of information about every single thing to be effective. And I think that is a good thing, along with rising privacy concerns, etc. The bandwidth or the overhead that you carry in terms of processing that amount of information is generally not worth it. But if you know what to look for, if you know the information that is going to yield you the best value, you can achieve a lot with relatively minor information.
When we speak about information, it tends to be scattered in so many places. Over the course of a day, I don't know how many times I put my footprint digitally, whether I'm inserting a password or whether it's my email or username. And sometimes I sit back and then I say, I actually don't know who has all this information. What do they do with it? Is it a risk to me? Is it a form of helping me? What happens when our information is just becoming so pervasive and so thrown all over?
That is, I think it's a good question, and we don't have the answers fully. I think we were coming back from a time when everybody wanted to gather every little thing, only to find that they can't actually use all of it typically. I mean, if you think about things like you visit somebody in an apartment building, they want your ID number, they want this, they want that, they want a copy of your driver's license and so on. Not all of that is necessary to identify you, and some of it actually endangers you. Some of it, because you don't know whose hands it's going to land in, exposes you to fraud and that sort of thing. So the information that we put out, where everybody needs you to log in, where everybody needs you to submit some kind of information, a little, like you're saying, digital footprints all over the place. For some people are a big cause for concern. For others, tend to take nothing bad has happened yet, so I think I'll carry on.
The libertarian view.
Yes.
Balancing privacy concerns and also obviously the reality that at some level or other, I'm probably benefiting from information you put somewhere. I'm benefiting from information that other people are putting somewhere, whether that's how Google Maps then harvests and then tells me how long it's going to take me to get to work. I mean, we all love to see the benefits, but I don't think I would agree if Google said, give us this information and want to tell the whole world what the traffic outline is. How do we get that balance between understanding the value of information when it's harvested at that level versus the fact that I actually don't want people to know where I stay, for example?
So I think, with continuing on the example of Google, I think had Google at one point said, here's a form, this is all the information that we want on you, every one of us would have said, no way. You want to know my every move, you want to know my name, you want my this, you want to hold my passwords, you want to this. But because it is a sort of it's an economy of sorts, in that you get something. Google provides you certain services for free that they are able to provide because of the information that they gather. We tend to agree, and it's incremental because, like I say, they didn't say this is what we want. Initially, it was just what's your what email address would you like, what password would you want, and then you give them that, and then you continue adding things. And as you go, you're seeing a benefit from it because they're able to take that information, and whether they abstract it before they make use of it in terms of using it as aggregated information or whatever, we benefit from it, from being able to travel and avoid traffic, using maps, or being able to shop and comparison shop online without too much trouble. And even things like their advertising platform, which makes use of that sort of abstracted data to say a person of a certain age, a person in this location, chances are they're interested in something like this, and you fit into one of those groups or several.
Now, obviously, Google is the big brother of all data collectors. I mean, they harvest it in ways that very few people can do. But we also see it happening even at a more granular level. I know that my greatest frustration is that I hate having a macro card. I do not have one, but sometimes I want to go there and then they insist that you can't shop there in the absence of a macro card. And I hate that. But I suspect that the type of information that they find from there becomes essentially what we talk about when data science kicks in and says, well, what's the point of all these things? However, what does it do for macro?
So typically you'll take a store card, macro, or even a credit card, a store credit card, and they'll take some basic information, what they need to ascertain your credit worthiness, how they can contact you. Basics. So your name, your ID number, your phone number, your address. Chances are if you're applying for credit, you'll have to say how much you earn. Mm-hmm. And from that, they're able to, first of all, sort of index you or group you to say you're a person of a certain age, you're male, you live in a certain area, you earn a certain amount. And then as you use the card, you start to shop, right? And they're now, because you haven't given up any information about your preferences when you apply for the card. But as you start to use it, they're able to now see that this person prefers this brand or he prefers this product. He shops in this store when he's around. And from there, they're able to derive things like, they're able to now start to segment their whole market and say, for people who live in Houghton, these are the patterns that are emerging. They prefer these products. These are the best times to get them shopping. Saturday mornings, for instance. They have a tendency to come in late on a Friday and buy liquor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as these patterns emerge, they're able to now start taking advantage of them, whether it's through specials, whether it's through targeted marketing, that kind of thing. And further to that, then they're able to even pull out further sort of contextual information that's not explicit. It's not something that you've bought, but it's a combination of a couple of factors to say, this is your, call it your demographic group, this is your income level, this is your location, and put those together along with your buying preferences to be able to infer that maybe this is a person who's probably in the market for better life cover. And so they're able to now, beyond making money from just your sales, sort of affiliate market you to say, this is a good candidate for you, I don't know, an insurer. And because now they've gathered this information around your preferences and your habits and your, they can infer your lifestyle from that. It becomes an easy sell now when somebody calls you up to say, Mr. Stole, this is Linka Mahapi calling from whatever insurance. Would you be interested in getting a quote for life cover or whatever else
And we always get pissed off, but we never acknowledge that actually the reason they're able to do that is because somewhere along the line I've been giving them bits and pieces of data and they've now put it all together. That process of then taking that bits and pieces of data, that pockets of data from multiple sources, and then actually converting into something that says, actually, when we call him, we're probably going to get a positive response, not because of one thing that he did 5 years ago, but because of the trends and the series of things that he's done. The process of synthesizing the data and then saying, actually, this is what we must do. That's a scientific part of it.
That is
how linear is the process? Is everyone just doing whatever they want, or are there particular processes or steps that you see being practiced commonly?
So there are common steps to it. I wouldn't call it linear because typically you have call it an exploration phase where you start with a few questions, that you want to answer. You have a problem statement. You have an issue that you're trying to resolve. And you will have in your mind that I can resolve this if I know more about a customer's habits, And you'll find that as you discover more about your customer's habits, further questions come out of that. And you might find that you're headed in a completely different direction than the one you initially embarked upon, but one that's much more fruitful. Businesses have been completely changed by it. The fine example is the one that you gave with Google, which went from just an email provider to what their main business now is advertising. And that process, as much as it's not linear, you do have to have some appreciation of the process for you to understand its value and to understand where it can take you as a business or as a
While I suspect that private businesses do it to get a competitive advantage, I suspect a lot of us will be much more comfortable if we heard that this data was being harvested in order to achieve a common social purpose. If this is the type of data that enables me to know when the traffic lights are going to be on or not, I probably might be more comfortable. Do we see a lot of government institutions or state institutions then getting into the habit of saying, actually, we've got the information, let us turn into something that is useful?
We are beginning to see it. We are beginning to see more and more, some locally and a lot of them internationally, governments, local governments, and even sometimes central governments, beginning to build up, data. Because typically, as local government, as a city or a local municipality or whatever, you actually hold quite a wealth of information on your citizens. Their addresses because they have to register a property.
They don't have a choice.
You have their ID numbers, you have their payment histories, you have which services you supply them with, There is a very good starting point to begin, to apply data science to actually bear some fruit from, with the data that you sit with. And what tends to happen is that a lot of our municipalities sit with the data in various different forms. And the biggest challenge is to consolidate it all, to have it sit, to have it housed in one place, to be able to cross-reference it and actually now extract the value from the insights that you'd get by analyzing that and being able to pull out the little details that you wouldn't see if you looked at billing information in isolation or metering information in isolation or credit control, etc. Because it has traditionally been siloed as by the operations.
I mean, the process of breaking down the silos and putting everything together and then trying to see what it means in relation to your potential to collect rates and taxes, for example, that sounds to me like a priceless thing for a municipality or a metro to do. Why are they not doing it?
I think they have a number of considerations. One is the cost of the of the sort of your initial research phase, which will yield some value, but not, how do I put, not immediate money. And with a lot of our municipalities are fairly cash strapped. And the idea of spending money that's not going to, give you a return.
Returns. You're going to see people throwing the PFMA and MFMA at you to say, wasteful expenditure, what was this for?
Exactly. But it is an unfortunately necessary evil. Well, not an evil. It's a necessary part of the process, because if you undertake something like that without laying that groundwork, you will find yourself swimming at sea. So there's the cost. There's a cost without an immediate return. Firstly,
Yeah.
Secondly, you have a lot of change management then to deal with. You have you
Why
have
am I
to
handing over my finance files to the HR people? What do they want to see? What has it got to do with them? That type of dynamics. Isn't it?
Exactly. And even to the point of now, because you're changing people's processes, their day-to-day processes, by housing them under one system, it means that if I'm used to using, system X, which is purely for credit control, for instance, it's about electricity cuts and delivering letters and whatever, to have that now housed under a larger system that will hold the whole city's data, you'll find that out of necessity, the little steps that you perform day to day will change, because now you're using a different interface. You're recording something differently than you were, because now the context is changed, where maybe you used a system where you didn't need to engage with citizens, municipal account numbers. You just used meter numbers. But because now we need to draw a thread all the way across, you're finding yourself having to deal with slightly different information to be able to provide the context that the next person will need, or the next department will need, or that, a data scientist, in tying it all together and trying to bring out the value, is going to have to...
Some of those resistances and anxieties, I must say, come from the fact that you guys speak different languages from what normal people speak. I mean, every day, as I was saying to someone earlier on, every day I log onto websites and then I get asked about cookies. And I always say yes, I have absolutely no idea what it is, but I assume that the only way I can access that information is to say yes to this thing. So that type of inability for people to sort of really understand exactly what it is that you're trying to say to them, I'm going to be like, I don't know what they're talking about, and my job might be at risk if I, agree to something that I'm like, I don't know what it did. So a lot of people are simply saying, hold on. Are we getting that education or that process of just getting people to warm up to this idea of IT speak? Is that improving?
That is a difficult one to answer. It is, and I guess there are pockets, where it improves, and pockets where it stagnates. But for sort of the best result, you want to get everybody familiar with that sort of jargon, for lack of a better word, because it's as much as we're talking about data science. For it to work, everybody needs to be conversant with what is happening and what they're going to benefit from it. And so you can't have it sitting in a silo by itself.
And I mean, your own history, having worked in the revenue management side, did you look at this thing and say, I wish things could be better? And then here you are in DSO Consulting and say, finally, I can roll it out. And then saying, this is the fusion of my primary passion and my IT skills, and this is what I'm putting together.
Definitely. I think this is something that I get very excited about. And it is... and as you go through and you, I think the picture that I had of what it would be and the actual reality of it are quite different. But what that's meant to me is something new to be excited about. So where I might have started with an enthusiasm to just hit the ground and roll this thing out and transform municipalities, where I am now is you start to recognize that you have to transform people first. You have to shift thinking, and which is a pretty exciting challenge as well.
Yeah. Whilst we may not be familiar with it, but now we understand that it exists, tell us exactly what is the value to municipalities, to metros, of just getting that revenue value chain sorted, particularly using the data that already exists in different corners, putting it together to say, actually, this is what we can do. This is what we as DSO Consulting can help you learn and do with your data.
So I think there is, similar to, the store card example and what have you, we have a number of data sets that sit in municipalities. When we're talking about the revenue value chain, we have, obviously, you've got your customer data, who they are, how to contact them, addresses, which services they have. Then you have their consumption information. How much water do they use? How much electricity do they use? We have all municipalities tend to group their customers according to is it a business? Is this a residential?
The whole zoning thing.
So all of those data sets sit there, and you've got geographic information as well. So you're able to then say, look at where how your customers are placed around your city, and you'll have an area where it's just businesses, and you can group them, you can cluster them, and be able to approach them, in certain ways. But you can also pull out information where you look at, something that's a concern in Gauteng is migration patterns, because the way that Gauteng grows isn't just by us having children. It's people moving
or even
here.
10 children at a time.
Even 10 at a time. You're probably not pushing the needle too much there. But, the largest number of us are transplants. We come here for opportunity. We come here for work and so on. But what that does is it drives development. It drives the growth of communities, the growth of neighborhoods, the growth of businesses. And as a municipality, you need to be looking at how you plan your infrastructure for that, how you plan your town planning, how you enact your town planning as you develop new parcels of land and new, residential nodes and business nodes, et cetera, And what data science allows you to do is to look at that information that you already are sitting on, and look at it over time, and you start to tease out the patterns. You tease out the growth patterns, and you can see that you're going to need, a large water main to service a neighborhood in the north of wherever, because you can see that neighborhoods are growing there. You can look at informal settlements and anticipate, needs.
I can imagine people who lived in Midrand 10 to 15 years ago wish this type of information had been available, because at some point in time, things were just exploding and the resources were not keeping up. When people do want to engage more and sort of learn more about data science, how do they get hold of Ndiso Consulting?
You can get hold of us, ndisoconsulting.co.za. Easiest way. And then you can also give us a call. I just want to open the number here for you. You can give us a call on 012-940-5435.
Okay, please say that number again.
012-940-5435.
Okay. Lenka Mohapi, the head of IT and DSO Consulting, thank you very much for joining us. And I assume that as you're driving home, you're going to be using some of the data science that's been harvested by someone in order to know which route to follow or not to follow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's time for the latest Power News headlines.
Power Solutions was proudly brought to you by DSO Consulting. DSO Consulting. Truth, trust, results.
You've been listening to a Power 98.7 podcast. For more podcasts, visit power987.co.za or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.